Something about this is
Yeah, how did you miss that opportunity?
yeah. Well,
Good for her. She there with some friends, I presume?
our daughter.
I've never been there. Yeah.
So
This is what you're in.
Good morning. It is October 11th. It is 9 a.m. We have a full slate of commissioners in the meeting room, our administrator, our clerk of the board, and I'd like to welcome Dwayne Johnson.
Davidson.
Dwayne Davidson. I keep
Merging.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I keep reverting back to Miami Vice. I don't know why, but I've done that numerous times. But Dwayne Davidson, I'd like to welcome Dwayne Davidson to the meeting, and thank you very much for coming in and helping us walk through this transition. I really appreciate it. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item on the agenda is the September 27th meeting minutes. Is there any corrections, additions, or revisions?
No.
Okay. Next, we'll move down to the approval of vouchers.
We have one voucher before us today. Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $341,484.64 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a
Can I make an
second.
interruption here? I'm sorry for this. Commissioner Mullen, would you mind restating the amount?
$341,484.67.
Thank you.
And that is correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Next, we'll move down to the consent agenda, and I believe we have 11 items on the consent agenda today.
Move for approval of consent agenda items with discussion on 11.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the 11 consent items with discussion on number 11. Proceed, Commissioner Mullen.
Just a correction, unless I'm reading it wrong, on the City of Mesa's council's members' position. Second line, it says this term will expire December 31st, 2013. I assume that was 2023.
My copy, I believe, is showing 2023. Are you looking at the resolution?
The City of Mesa council members' position. Persons interested in applying for the position of city council members, please fill out. This term will expire December 31st, 2013. The city council meets on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 7, and then it goes into J. Dillard. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's just either a typo.
Correct. That would be a typo. The resolution does have the correct date on it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And that is Resolution 2022-262, and yes, it does have 2023 on it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So without further discussion, there's been a motion and a second for the 11 consent items. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we'll move down to the Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Busy week. As you can see from the agenda, we've got a lot of items that we're trying to get completed. Extend my personal welcome to Dwayne Davidson to serve as the interim county administrator. And so I've been working a little bit with him, working on a number of outstanding issues in HR related to collective bargaining and some of the items that you're going to see on agenda later today. I did participate to listen in on the Wasatch virtual assembly call yesterday. And still working on a lot of the same kinds of projects, ARPA, budget, those kinds of ongoing efforts. Thank you.
Commissioner Peck?
Same Wasatch update meeting yesterday, as Mr. Johnson just spoke to. A couple of meetings this week with Legislative Steering Committee staff, my co-chair out of Jefferson County, and Paul Jewell with the Wasatch staff. Excuse me, further refining the short list of items for the 39 counties to bring before the legislature in January. That's probably the biggest time consumer right now. Meetings with a couple of different departments in the courthouse on personnel issues and concerns. And other than that, generally a fairly light week.
Commissioner Mullen?
Last week had the Greater Columbia Behavioral Health meeting, also the Southeast Washington Aging and Long-Term Care, and also the Benefits Committee. Also had some discussion with the local developer on PACER funding. Some counties have adopted this, some haven't. And what it does is it allows a builder to finance the energy efficiency of the building and attach it to the property instead of it going against his own debt ratio. And so I've had some discussion on it, but just wanted to let everybody be aware that that is out there and that we are having some discussion on it. Also had a call from the Latin community is concerning the HAPO Center and their concerns on where it is going forward, and that they would be interested in operating the HAPO Center. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Well, last week I was in on the interview of 2 people for HR director, and we're still weighing that position out. Yesterday, met with the Pasco officials, with Mr. Johnson and Mr. Davidson. A very productive meeting there with the Pasco officials, and they are in favor of what we're doing there at HAPO. And it's currently right now, we got the Port of Pasco meeting, which I won't be able to attend because I'm in this meeting. So I don't know how it got scheduled the same day as our meeting, but it's today. So that's happening right now. That's it for me. So with that, we'll move down to the Hub Insurance County Benefits presentation. Brandon? Mr. Cleary? Morning.
Could I get the little clicker this time? Let it operate it?
Absolutely. Just don't be moving the slides.
First. There we go. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to present today's employee benefits renewal. Again, Brandon Cleary, partner and consultant, with also Nicole Floyd here, who's also joining us. And we've spent many time throughout the year working through this process and also the efforts that we put into for today's presentation and the renewal that we're going to present. So let's start off. So I want to focus, and there's a lot of details going on here, but essentially on the executive summary here, and this is our claims performance for the year. Also, you can equate that to our financial performance as a health plan. If there's one thing I really want to focus on is last year, if you look where it says prior plan year, excuse me, Nicole, I don't want to shoot the dot in your eye there, but essentially our loss ratio, as we highlighted last week, was at 151%. That is essentially the ratio for every dollar that we're collecting is how many dollars are being paid out by the insurance company. Last year, under Primera, there was over $3.2 million in claims paid out and a premium collected of $2.1 million. Looking at the current plan year, this is data from January to the end of June, because United Healthcare, is on a reporting lag, we're at a loss ratio of 143%. While that is still very, very high, again, remember, insurance carriers looking for somewhere in the range of 70 to 80% on a loss ratio, as they have built-in administrative costs, fees, et cetera. Compared to last year at the same time frame, so that is January 1st to June 21st under Primera, we had a loss ratio of 181%. What I'm highlighting here is essentially, while it's still not where we want to be, we are seeing improvement. Can I open up to any questions on the claims data before we get into the rest? Okay. Now typically, no, I did mess up on the clicker. Typically, on the historical claims is what we've shown at renewal. So this is a snapshot in time in previous presentations. A lot of data on the screen. If there is anything I really want you to look through or pay attention to is our per employee per member claims cost. So in 2020, we were at about $798 per employee per member in terms of claims. Last year, we had an all-time high of $1,431. Currently, we're about $1,244. So again, the trend's starting to improve. Much farther distance to go there, though. Another factor that we've really paid attention to over time, which has been a subject to discussions in previous renewals and committee discussions, is the percentage of RX claims. So that is the percentage of prescription drug claims of our total plan. As you can see, in 2020, it peaked around 34%. In 2021, it's at 20%, and we're kind of leveling off about the 18% range. And lastly, on the slide here, I really have to focus on is called large claimants. So this is very important because in terms of matter of all the members we have on a plan, and all the premiums we're collecting, there can be a number of claimants that exceed the pooling point. And the pooling point, in this case, last year was moved up to $125,000, which is on our current plan in 22, $125,000. If you look down here under pooling claimants, we had 7 last year that represented over $446,000 in pooling claims. After you meet the pooling point, that $446,000 is what that represents. That is not counting towards our plan. It'll count in the gross loss ratio, but not our net loss ratio. So when we're looking at and evaluating the renewal, we strip those out because they went to a pool. We are benefiting from an overall pool within United Healthcare at that point on those claimants. And as you can see, as this year, 1 large claimant, compared to 7 last year, is driving the $236,000 in pooled claims, representing about 15% of the total gross claims.
So Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is that for all the attention we pay to the size of the pool or who we try to attract or not attract to the pool, it only takes 1 or 2 or 3 large claimants to dramatically shift our performance in our claims history.
That is correct.
Yeah, so, okay. I bring that up because I've seen instances where in an effort to perhaps grow a pool or adjust the size of the pool, you end up bringing in claimants who were on other policies, and you do that without the benefit of knowing the claims history of those new members. And if their claims history is really good, it can help. And if there's a few that have high costly needs, then it can easily overwhelm the very thing you're trying to accomplish.
I mean, for example, just looking at that one claim, I mean, you can have further examples of people hitting that level of
Right.
claimant. Yes.
Yeah.
Any questions on this slide? Yeah. So ultimately, though, we have other benefits besides medical insurance. It's easy to get lost on our health plan. But essentially, we have life insurance, long-term disability, dental HMO plan through Willamette, and vision benefits. This slide represents the takeaways that committees recommend to renew for with these plans through Lincoln Financial, Willamette, and VSP. Under Lincoln Financial, we are in a contract guarantee under 2023, so we had no renewal increase at 0%. And on the dental HMO plan, Willamette, we don't have a guaranteed contract or we don't, but the increase is 2.83%. And under vision, the contract is guaranteed to 2027. So makes that portion of the renewal much easier. Back to focus on United Healthcare, who represents our medical plan and our dental PPO plan. As we know, we initially saw a 29.29% increase on the medical plan. What I really want to highlight here is the collaboration with the committee to come up with an alternative, which we're going to present to you here in a few slides. The alternative options that they have recommended on two of our plans, which affect the PPO 2,000 and 3,500. We looked at a formulary change to the prescription drug and the impact that would have. And then we also looked at what's called a freestanding benefit. So that's not changing the main structure of the plan, but again, directing kind of some different decision-making when it comes to outpatient x-rays, imaging lab and x-rays and outpatient procedures, moving those away from a hospital-based facility to a more freestanding facility. And we have impact reports. We've looked at the data on both, how many people were affected by the formulary change and how many could be affected by this freestanding benefit. And as we all came back and concluded, the best opportunity was in the freestanding benefit change, which we'll go through.
Brandon, is it accurate to say the freestanding benefit change increases options or choice for the employees and potentially reduces costs based on what they elect?
It definitely incentivizes that decision process. They still have the same available providers, just if you choose to go to a hospital-based facility on those plans, you're going to pay a little more rather than going to a freestanding place.
But it gives them choice.
Yes, it does
Great.
give them choice. And regarding the dental renewal, while it was at 15% and we negotiated down to 10%, we did receive a concession from United Healthcare to help offset the medical increase. So they couldn't bring down the dental rates, but they gave us an additional 0.58% off our medical rates, which really makes this renewal about a 3% increase on the dental. Okay. On the dental renewal, just again, I really want to focus on the key point is none of our plans are changing on the dental plan. So we're not making any modifications to deductibles, co-insurance, the lower, the up, or the base plan and the buy-up plan. There was a 10% increase. Again, that was offsetted by United Healthcare giving us an additional medical discount, which really equated to a 3% increase on the dental plan. The committee's recommendation is to renew with United Healthcare Dental. Focusing on this slide, obviously this is a big piece. This is where essentially all our plans that we're offering employees. The green highlighted fields are essentially what the committee's recommendation. And if you can look, we have the $1,000 PPO plan, $2,000, $3,500, and the HSA plan. Half of the employee base, as you can see, is enrolled in the $1,000 deductible plan. We had our current rates, what our renewal rates at the 29.29% increase, and we presented option A, which included that freestanding benefit. The committee's recommendation was to not alter the $1,000 deductible plan. So that plan will be intact. There will be no benefit changes to that plan. The recommendation is to renew as is on that plan. On the 2,000, I am failing the pointer test again. On the $2,000 and $3,500 PPO plan, you can see that option A is highlighted and option B, and that is the freestanding benefit, which, if I can, the takeaway emphasizing is the percent reduction that we get on those two plans. On the 2,000, it's close to 10%, and then close on the 3,500, we're looking closer to 16.5% as a cost reduction. So keeping those plans a little bit more cheaper, again, with that choice on the freestanding benefit change, and keeping costs lower. And on the high deductible health plan, the choice was after we made, and these were actually, backing up from the contribution increase last week. We met on Thursday with the committee, and these were the recommendations. The only change that was made from what I presented last week was on the HSA high deductible health plan. They decided just to renew with the existing plan, which represents about 5 employees. We've only have 5 employees on that plan. Any questions on the combined medical rates?
Just interesting that on the 2,000 and 3,500, options A and B, it's not every day you get more choice and lower cost. I had to hear you say that a couple of times to. That's good.
Okay. So focusing on our $1,000 deductible plan, which is what we're currently renewing, just remember that our medical deductible is at $1,000 per individual, $3,000 for family. Coinsurance is 20%, so that is the cost share you're responsible for after deductible, which is 20% on the member and 80% on the insurance company. Copays will stay the same at $35 for a copay for primary and specialty care, as well as the existing copay structure for lab, x-ray, and their network, which they can go hospital, freestanding, it's the same copay structure. And the out-of-pocket maximum will remain the same at $5,000, $10,000. That represents a 29.29% increase this year. The Benefits Committee's recommendation is to renew with the current plan. Any questions on the $1,000 deductible? Now, looking at the $2,000 deductible plan, the key takeaway here is looking at the freestanding benefit. So that is your option A, choice plus direct, what's highlighted in green. The font in blue are the changes. Now, you can get focused on the freestanding benefit. The key piece of this plan as well is that we are not affecting the deductible, the copays, the coinsurance, the out-of-pocket maximum, or our pharmacy plan. Those are all going to be or maintain the same. The blue portions, or when you come to look at that row where it says minor lab and x-ray. Well, while in the freestanding benefit, a minor lab and x-ray, you'll get a $25 copay if you go to a freestanding center. You'll get a $50 copay if you're going to a hospital facility. We looked at the data as United Healthcare provided it to us and our utilization over the last year, and over 75% of the employees are actually already going to a freestanding, or that have used the plan for that benefit, went to a freestanding imaging location. X-ray and diagnostic testing, $75 copay for a freestanding center, or $150 if you go to a hospital facility. But where I think the biggest difference you'll see is in the minor diagnostic and imaging. So your MRIs, CAT scans, PET scans, those essentially will be at deductible at 20% at freestanding centers, and subject to deductible at a 40% hospital, at a 40% coinsurance at a hospital-based facility. So again, driving that differentiation to go to freestanding or hospital-based facility. And we looked at the claims that we had about 75% going to hospital-based facilities. So people that don't want to deal with this option, they can go up to the higher $1,000 deductible plan. For people that understand, as we will work with communication with employees, that there's this differentiation change, this allows them to make a different choice for a better benefit. The emergency room copay will change. It's going to go from a $150 copay to a 20% just coinsurance, meaning when you walk in that emergency room, you are subject to your deductible. Of course, if you're admitted, you're probably going to hit your deductible pretty quickly. And then for outpatient procedures, there's a differentiation there too. If you use an outpatient facility owned by the hospital, you're going to be looking at a $350 copay, then deductible, unless you go to an ambulatory facility, freestanding, which is just subject to deductible at 20%. Any questions on this freestanding benefit option, option A, that's recommended by the committee? Okay. Now, the $3,500 deductible plan, again, slight differences obviously from the previous, which is a $3,500 deductible, $7,000 for family. Coinsurance, copay structure will remain the same. It's the same theme here. We're just looking at the freestanding benefit, which allows us to have a renewal increase of 12.83%. So significant cost reduction using this plan design for this plan. Any questions on the $3,500 deductible? And just reminding, committee's recommendation is to renew with option B. Here comes the question of the HSA plan, which, as we had presented to the committee, was it beneficial for everybody to continue with this plan? The recommendation is to continue with it. It's a high deductible health plan, which means it's qualified for health savings account contributions, which involve pre-tax deductions. Anyways, the recommendation is to keep the plan as is, and that represents a 29.29% increase. Yes. On option B?
I'm the one employee in the county that
Yeah.
uses that plan, and they asked for my opinion.
So I think at the committee meeting last week, last Thursday, it was changed from option B to the renewal. That's what I show the vote to be.
Why would you pick the higher one? I mean, as the one
Jan,
employee that uses it.
would you mind coming to the mic
Yeah.
so that
Yes.
we have you and,
Sorry, I was told I was the only employee using it and that it would be set at whatever I chose, and I chose the cheaper option, which I think was Plan B.
Huh?
Do you remember what happened?
No, I don't have the exact numbers on me right now.
There was a tie, we had your vote and we had another vote. So as a committee as a whole, instead of trying to go back to see and if we were at a dead tie, the committee as a whole made a vote and that ended up being the,
Okay, if there's another employee, that makes sense. I was just told I was the only one, so.
yeah,
that was
no,
the
originally
confusion.
that's exactly what
Okay.
happened and then we ended up with a tie and then the committee made the choice.
All right, perfect, thanks.
Okay. And to close this renewal, in the last kind of order of business is to talk about our current benefit administration system. So our system behind making open enrollment elections, managing enrollment changes throughout the year is done electronically. It's done by a platform called Celerix. It's been with the county, I believe, since 2013. Need to verify that, but 2013, and it came over with Primera and Conover. Essentially, that system, just like and takeaway, there's a lot of words on here, but essentially the takeaway from this is that this system is becoming obsolete. It's very difficult to manage now. When we have updates from just even collective bargaining units where an agreement's made and we got to go outside open enrollment and do updates, we're in long-awaited updating loops with the programming. There's been a lot of patchwork fixes with the system. We've known this for a couple of years. The system right now is technically free. It's been paid for, funded by Lincoln Financial in this arrangement we have with a company called GIS. We spent some time as a team going through and pulling in hub consultants as well to look at what would it mean if we have to get a replacement system. Could it handle the complexity of our bargaining units and all our contribution structures and meet the needs of what we need for the county? Those systems range from anywhere from $25,000 to $37,000 in cost from our current system, bottom line there. So we were able to work with our current arrangement where they've proposed an overhaul of the system. Essentially think of it like a remodel. So you're going to strip it down to the foundation and reprogram it and make it so that it doesn't have these kinks and issues that we currently have to deal with that eventually may not make the system usable. And it came up with a one-time fee of $3,500 and a maintenance fee of $1.50 per employee per member, which equates to about $400 a month. Our recommendation is for this open enrollment, and we're seeking your approval, is to make this upgrade change to the benefit administration system and authorize this for the January 1st open enrollment.
All right. Well, that's a lot to digest in one presentation. And I don't know if we're going to make a decision on this today. We probably can have some time to think about it because it doesn't have to be done until the first of the year, correct?
It's part of the programming. So there's going to go into a build-out phase where once we, it's part of the process of doing open enrollment implementation. The system has to be built out on the back end. Nicole can probably talk to us even better than I could.
This would be to allow employees to enroll on the benefit plans that we will be approving today, 2023. So typically that's going to happen during November, where this would have to be built out, ready to go, so employees can go and make their elections. Huge 5% for the HR staff.
Yeah. So Brandon, your recommendation, your assessment is that the upgrade to the system needs to happen. The timing might be a separate discussion, but one way or another it needs to happen. And then second point is if it happens now, it allows us to facilitate these recommendations. If it doesn't, these committee recommendations could be problematic for us to implement.
Yes.
We could still do it, but take more time.
It takes more time, which we don't have. The overall system upgrade or change, replacement, does have to happen. If we try to go forward with the continuous system, we're running
So the system we're
longer
using,
delays and potential issues with this open enrollment.
system we're using now is a decade old.
Correct.
Needs to be upgraded. Seems like a reasonable time. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the proposed upgrade to the Solarix system to facilitate the upcoming open enrollment and to carry out the wishes of the Benefits Committee.
Second with discussion.
There's been a motion and a second with discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner Mullen.
So what is the difference between bSwift and PlanSource?
These are whole, entirely separate benefits administration systems. They are complex, more expensive. They all sort of look, feel, and smell the same. They have different bells and whistles. This one has worked well for you for a number of years, and it's certainly the most economical fix and probably the easy button for you. So we, after looking at all of these different systems for you, yes, bSwift and PlanSource has additional functionality, which you probably don't need right now. You haven't put any dollars into this system for years and years. As a maintenance catch-up, for the dollars, it's going to get you the most bang for your buck.
So my question is, with bSwift and PlanSource, bSwift is 50% more expensive than PlanSource. What, is there any major difference between the two?
They're all a little bit different. Their service models tend to be a little bit different. The ownership is different and have different goals in terms of profitability, so.
Is it worth the extra 50% increase? Thank you.
So I notice on bullet point number 2, limited solutions for systems due to contribution complexity with VIBA.
That's true.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Oh, yes.
I'm not loud enough? Okay.
You
I
can't.
can get louder. I'm a mom of teenagers. Yes, the VIBA structure is becoming more and more unique as time goes on. It's certainly not unheard of. There are lots of organizations that use a structure like this. Where Ben admin systems struggle sometimes because it's not as typical is the order in which it has to be applied to different benefits, and sort of what happens to those dollars after it's spent down. So that's where a lot of Ben admin systems cannot handle this type of arrangement.
Any other questions? Keith, Dwayne, do you guys have any input?
I think we've heard most of the presentation offline, so I think I'm comfortable. I just want to make sure that the options here for system upgrades would be, we could choose bSwift or Plan Source or the GIS. There's 3 different options that could be considered. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. And so the motion that Commissioner Peck proffered was to go with the GIS CellerX option. So we're clear. Thank you.
My understanding, Brandon, is that was your recommendation, right?
That is my recommendation from cost perspective, familiarity. The feel to the employee won't be much different. It's the back-end cleanup. And getting an overhaul at this low of cost compared to what's out in the market for a replacement, to me, makes most sense financially.
And I might just add my own commentary that I would support us making that investment. Computer systems are expensive and they have a estimated useful life, and if you don't maintain them, they become problematic and it becomes very expensive to replace them. So $3,500 for a one-time fee strikes me as a very reasonable investment of our resources to make sure that these benefits can be administered efficiently.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move down to the public hearing, Horticultural Pest and Disease Control Board. Morning, Pam.
Good morning. Probably can't see that. All right. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm Pam Loa, and I'm here on behalf of the Franklin County Horticultural Pest and Disease Control Board. And we are here to evaluate our assessment and consider an adjustment. All right. Can I touch this? One moment. Okay. So we live in a rich agricultural county. And if you live in Eastern Washington, you know how important agricultural is and cannot drive very far without seeing a field or orchard. In fact, we have over 37,000 acres of fruit orchards in Franklin County. So every county in Washington that has commercial tree fruit operations that ship fruit to other county or countries are required to have a functioning horticultural pest and disease board. Franklin County's board was established in 1971 to ensure unrestricted trade. Our department responds to written complaints and carries out activities as described in RCW 1509. So when there is a complaint, we are called and we carry out the different activities as described in 1509. And that could be usually unmanaged vegetation or neglected orchards. The list of pest and diseases boards manage continues to grow, especially with pests as they are introduced to our country and don't have natural predators. Our board proactively monitors these pests along with other agricultural organizations. As an example, we have an inspector who works with the commercial or cherry orchardists inspecting for cherry leaf roll virus that will decline the fruit and eventually kill the tree. And I don't know if you can see in that lower, beside the photograph, those are innations. Those are on the back leaf of a cherry leaf.
Pam?
And those are one of the indicators of.
If I may interrupt you, I didn't realize this is a public hearing, so I'd like to open up the public hearing at this time.
I am so sorry. I
Just
thought we
that.
did.
No, I didn't, but I'm going to open it at this time, and please continue.
Okay, thank you. All right. So those are the innations, which are a symptom of cherry leaf roll virus. And my inspector, Connor, that is his main focus when he goes into these orchards. And he will indicate or mark the trees that are infested and report back to the orchardist or the grower with recommendations of tree removal. So without an assessment adjustment, this is one of the services that would eventually go away. And you can see here, what I have here to the right, that is our schedule for inspection. And they are specifically the orchards that are 10 years and older. And that's kind of what we focus on because that is the time frame that the disease will usually start to show within the trees. So it's roughly 3,000 acres that we're inspecting annually. And we cut that in half and we do that every other year. So one of the things that you don't want to happen in a county is a quarantine, and I don't think a lot of people understand what that means. So I don't know, you may have heard about the Japanese beetle that's taken over Grandview, or you may have seen the sign, no homegrown fruit beyond this point, because you're going into a pest-free area, and Franklin County would be a pest-free area. And so what happens when pests become large enough, a quarantine is established to control, if not eradicate, the pest. What happens is restrictions occur, making crossing into counties, or shipping overseas difficult once you become quarantined. Infested fruit won't be, well, it's not accepted and will be denied in foreign countries. This, as we know, hurts our economic well-being. And I placed a map here of the apple maggot quarantine. So the red is all what's currently quarantined, and all the green is pest-free. And you see pretty much Eastern Washington is a pest-free area of the state. And then on the lower right-hand corner, I wanted to show how the Japanese beetle has infested the 49 square foot mile area around Grandview. And they did recently find one in Richland, but there hasn't been any since then. So it's good, we want everybody to be, proactive and help to prevent these pests from becoming a quarantine for Franklin County. Oop, hold on here. So most people who plant fruit trees in their backyard find planting to be an enjoyable experience and look forward to the time when they can pick that fresh fruit and share it with their friends. Most of the people who don't realize the responsibility of those trees when that little tree is planted. And what happens is after a couple of seasons of wormy fruit and an expense, it just becomes a messy fruit tree in the yard, and eventually it loses its appeal. And it's a shade tree, or the produce goes to livestock, or it becomes just a shade tree. So that's kind of where, we come in. And here we go here. So like I said, residential assistance is needed more than ever, especially if you live near a commercial orchard. And with the commercial orchards, the restrictions on pesticides has become a lot more limited. So our focus is more on educating residents at this point. And what I wanted to demonstrate here is one of the things we do is we go out and we educate the public by sharing spray guides with them, or even if they want to be organic, we give them suggestions on how they can be organic. But the bottom line is you can't not do anything. Best case scenario, you need to remove the infested fruit. So you see the photo here, that's a close-up of the apples, and you see those little marks on there. That is codling moth. This tree is infested with codling moth. And it's been this way. We've been monitoring this one since 2018. And so I have a little inset picture there of what a codling moth looks like, and it's about, like a half inch. And what it does is it will lay its egg right about bloom time, and that little apple maggot buries into that apple. You see it on to the right. I circled it, and the marks you see are usually the apple maggot. It will exit out and fall to the ground and pupate and stay there for the year, and then the cycle starts all over again. And codling moth can actually have 3 generations in a season. That's another story. So we have typically three inspectors. Connor, he specializes and focuses on the commercial orchards. And then there's the other 2 of us are out in the community, and we're doing, like I said, outreach and education. And so now, though, we're down to 2 inspectors at reduced hours. And we tried to get interns, but we haven't had any more luck than anybody else has with hiring staff or finding people. We know it's a challenge, so it's even more so with interns. So we continue to monitor the emergence of different pests. And so I want to show, this is like a before, and then we started working with this resident, and so you see now all the fruit is removed from the tree, which is progress. But what happened is they removed the fruit, and it was in the back alley. So we're still we're still working baby steps here. And then here's another example of a resident. And what you see, what you're looking at, that's an apple tree that extends way above the fence line. And we know that's not manageable. And this tree has never been pruned. And then right there by the mailbox, you see it's like overgrown. And what you can't see is on the sidewalk, there are apples there, and there's a ornamental plum that's gone to fruit, and it's just made a mess of the sidewalk. So here we have, after our conversation, he has, you could see, he's pruned away a lot of the tree, so it's away from the fence and not overhanging. And so the conversation we had after this was there's still fruit in the tree, so you still need to remove that fruit and make the tree manageable. So to the right there, you see in the back corner, that is that apple tree now. It is below the fence line, and now it is the manageable size. And the other one, you see the tree on the inset, that's just another baby step. That is an apricot tree that has never been pruned. And it falls over into the neighbor's yard and drops fruit. And then in regard to the neighbor, back to the image on the left, you see that little tree, those few little limbs there. That neighbor just planted that tree, and they're already at ground, -0, because once that one tree gets the codling moth, it's automatically, those codling moth are gonna just look at that as another little appetizer. So we have given them, spray guides and some instruction for, pruning to kind of help out. So this is kind of, I just wanted to show some before and after of our program. So the residential fruit trees continue to be a challenge. However, as we forge relationships with other municipalities, local nurseries, realtors, and like-minded organizations, we can all make a difference. So one of the things that we offer is a tree buyback program. So if the resident will remove that fruit tree, we will give them a $100 voucher. That's good at local merchants. And hopefully that's, some additional incentive to help people consider removing a tree. We also run the occasional tree removal service at a discounted rate. So this is another service that suffers as our assessment adjustment decreases. So here, starting to get into it. So the last 5 years, our fund balance has declined approximately 19% annually. As mentioned, our department can no longer provide the thorough service to the county residents at the current assessment rate. So we have not had an assessment increase since 2001 due to personnel, policy, and economic changes. And we've had a operating budget of $200,000, and now it's getting closer to like $160,000. So with personnel, for an example, an increase, medical expense, so back in 2018, it was $6,600. We're looking at 2023 of a new price of $40,000, over $40,000. That's just the medical and dental. So and then as well, our liability insurance has gone up 40%. So with that, per RCW 1509-135 regarding assessments, public hearing, and the rate, so the board shall develop and forward to the county board of commissioners or other county legislative authority as a proposed assessment rate shall be either uniform per acre in its respective uniform rate per acre, provided that if no benefits are found to accrue to a class of land, 0 assessment may be levied. The Board of Commissioners or other county legislative authority, upon receipt of the proposed levels of assessment from the Horticultural Pest and Disease Board, after a hearing, shall accept or modify by resolution or refer back to the Horticultural Pest and Disease Board for its reconsideration all or any portion of the proposed levels of assessment. So what I did is I provided a couple of examples for you. Let me see here. And so option A, so right now, our assessment is the combined. So we have a flat rate and we have a per acre rate. And our per acre rate is applied to fruit tree growers, and that's $4 per acre. And that was determined like back in 2001 and has not changed since then. But as we see a shift in responsibility to residential fruit trees, and would like to therefore just change that assessment or modify it. So right now it's $1.50, and an example I presented here again is like a $3, so it's a $1.50 increase, and that applies to all size of parcels. So it's regardless of the size, everybody would pay $3. Now, because we have not had an assessment increase since 2001, $3 isn't really feasible. What it does, it gives us an additional $46,000, but with I just told you, our medical and dental is up to $40,000 alone. So I also provided another option, B, and that one is adjusting to 75 cents per acre, for each parcel. And so that gives us an additional $175,000 to our budget. Really, it's a cost savings to those who own an acre or less, and actually, if you own less than 3 acres, you really don't see any change. So those with an acre pay 75 cents. Let's say you've got an acre and a half, you'll pay $1.50. And that's what the current rate is right now per parcel. And then I put up some other examples of what the cost would be. And so even like for 10 acres, you're talking $7.50 for the year or 63 cents a month. And so the services that we provide, I think there's a lot of bang for the buck right here. And so also what this would do, it allows us to hire our staff, allowing them 30 hours or more. And we can get additional help with the pests that we see on the horizon here. And I'm saving that for my budget presentation. So with that concludes my presentation of the hearing. And so I'll turn the floor back over to you, Commissioner.
So we'll start with the commissioners for questions, and this is a public hearing, so the public will also be able to weigh in. So commissioners, questions?
Can we go back to that last slide, please? Remind me what the current per acre charge is?
So right now, the only per acre charge is for the tree fruit growers at $4 per acre. And this is only for residential. And so what we did is we subtracted out.
This proposal is only for residential.
Both of them are. And so the tree fruit growers will continue to pay $4 per acre.
Okay.
Now, again, that's minus dry lands, government lands, our standard.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just
Okay.
want to make sure that the fruit tree acreage didn't go to 75 cents also. So it's just residential. That's helpful. And I'm sorry, did you say that there's currently a per acre residential?
No, there's not.
I
It's a
didn't think
flat
so.
rate of $1.50 currently.
And could we stay on that slide, please? Go back
Oh,
to
sorry.
back to the previous one. I think it was changing automatically.
I don't know how to get that off of there.
Okay, don't worry about it. So there you go.
Thank you.
So the per acre residential charge you're proposing is in lieu of the 150?
Yes.
Okay.
And I feel that allows us to, to grow as our county grows, and as well for the adjustments with different expenses that we can't change as
Yeah,
far
and
as,
and excuse me, the 150 was per parcel?
yes.
Surprises me that a per acre at 75 would yield more than a per parcel charge. It suggests that we have a lot more residential parcels bigger than an acre than I realized.
Yes.
I mean, you look at all the
I
housing,
agree.
and some of them 4 or 5 houses to an acre, but there must be some larger residential tracts that offset that statistic.
Yeah, that's the assessor. And-
Right.
yeah.
Well, it's just a perception thing. As you look at the
Yes.
county and you look at the residential area, at least my perception is that most of the residential areas tend to be an acre or less. And these numbers suggest that that can't be the case.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can help you out here. That photo that you had of the single tree, would that be considered an acre?
Yes,
One tree.
yes, one tree.
I think that'll help out Commissioner Peck with his reasoning there.
Say that again?
One tree will equate to an acre.
Okay, I'm not following that. When we talk about an acre assessment at 75 cents, we're talking about an acre of land, 43,560 square feet. Or less. Okay.
Yeah.
One tree would equate to an acre. So I got a
Thank you,
couple-
Mr. Rose. I think that was the key point, is the 2 words, or less.
Yeah.
Also, is it 7 cents or is it gonna be 75?
That was going to be the next question there. Is acre or less is 7.5 cents?
No, I'm sorry, then that's an error. It's 75 cents.
Okay. I've been saying 75, and that's what you said, but the
I know.
gentleman's correct about the 0.
The 0, that's an error.
Yeah.
So the moth that you had the pictures of, what's the length of travel for a moth? How far can it travel to infect another tree?
It can travel about a mile.
Okay.
And that's, granted, there's no wind, it's not, hitching a ride into somebody's fruit.
Being packed by somebody packing an apple off.
Right, and that's why I stress the importance of, if you are a resident that lives within a 1.5 mile radius of a commercial orchard, that it's very critical that, we be proactive. Now, with the residential, they're just infesting each other.
Yeah.
So Pam, I lived a few years in southern Illinois, and we had a Japanese beetle problem there that you'd put traps out in your yard, and in a matter of a day and a half, they would be full. And when I say full, it's like a large container full of them. It's pretty disgusting, actually.
Yeah.
But what it seemed to be an exponential growth rate in those is kind of alarming to me, that we've now seen Japanese beetle, or at least one, in Richland. And what I'm leading to is we're looking at an assessment here that would impact the residential community. And I suppose some people don't really view their residential properties as much of a pest threat. They think it's more the commercial orchards that are have the acreage and have the risk, right? So the question is, with that sort of as a backdrop, is if we have an explosion of Japanese beetle, and everywhere I've lived that we've had them, that's what happened. What is the, and you, in your previous slide said that they feed on some 300 or so various plant species. What is the threat of Japanese beetle, excuse me, to commercial growers? And what I'm thinking is that regulation of them in residential areas is a necessary and highly beneficial thing for the commercial growers, just based on how I've seen Japanese beetle populations grow exponentially and migrate. So a simple Are the Japanese beetles a threat to the commercial orchards?
Yes.
Okay. And in particular, any ones more than others?
Yes, so grapes, hops, corn, yeah, roses. Now, as far as I want to say the cherry and apple, my understanding is when the harvest is already concluded by the time that they are going, before they start going underground.
Okay.
They've already had their feast, basically.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate that. Obviously, I'm not a tree fruit grower. I think the most I've ever had in fruit trees is maybe 3 or 4 at one time, and they were infested apples at Moore Mansion that we ripped out as soon as we moved there, so, with Tom's help. But I can't imagine that the value as a taxpayer, the value to the county's economy and dealing with Japanese beetle, I can't imagine that isn't worth 75 cents for an acre or less. I personally think it's probably worth a lot more than that, but if that's what works for your budget, it makes sense to me.
Thank you.
So I got a couple more questions. The assessment of $4 per acre, does that include all orchard ground, even the orchard ground that is held by the teachers' pension plans and unions?
No, well,
Do they get assessed also?
if I'm understanding your question.
We have a lot of ground out there right now. It's getting bought up by the pension plans and the unions of the teachers. And I'm just curious if they're assessed the same amount of money as a private tree fruit grower.
Yeah, Commissioner Didier, I think we can answer that. The assessor's office, and we do assess that the same. They do not get a break.
Thank you.
So, and that acreage is then counted down for the horticultural department.
And then one more question, Ms. Lua, what is the penalty if you were to take maggot-infested apples and travel across the state to a heavy apple industry county?
I can't imagine anybody would knowingly do that.
I know where you're going.
What is the penalty supposed to be? And why do elected officials get to not be held accountable?
That's a question for the WSDA. Yeah, they are the regulators. However, there is penalty based on the RCW, because it's considered with commercial growers. There's a lien, and so if there is an official complaint, a written complaint, we will follow up with that, and it could lead to a legal fee.
Thank you. Commissioner Mullen, you have any questions?
So the option A, the $3 per parcel, is in addition to the $4 per parcel that the orchards are already paying?
The $4 is the commercial orchards, and then the $3 is residential. So the residential is currently at $1.50 per parcel.
Okay.
And that proposal is increasing it by $1.50 to be $3 per parcel, like a flat rate.
Right, so it has no impact on the $4 that the
No.
orchards are paying?
Pam, I think you said that all of these proposed changes only affect the residential area. Did I hear
Correct.
that right? So none of these proposed increases affect the commercial growers?
Correct.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I was not clear on that initially either, so.
So this is a public hearing. If the commissioners are done, is there anybody in the public, anybody on the phone, Mr. Johnson, that
No one on the phone.
wants to weigh in? Please come forward.
I put my taxes in the mail this morning. Kind of hurts a little bit when you throw out there that tax money. But I live on Road 48, and I have in my view, we're driving up and down that road, several trees that are unattended. One particular apricot tree that drops its fruit on the ground continually. As a resident, as a taxpayer, I'm all in favor of, in fact, I would agree with Commissioner Peck. I don't think 75 cents is near enough, but of all the assessments that I see on my tax forms, protecting our food and our growers is certainly worthwhile. As a taxpayer, I only speak for myself, I'd be willing to pay that.
Morning, Commissioners. My name's Eric Smith. I'm on the board, the Horticultural Board itself, and I work with Tigueris Fruit. I'm the horticultural specialist. And we have property out in the Ice Harbor area on the Snake River on both sides, both in Walla Walla and here in Franklin County. And I am a resident of Pasco, so I am a taxpayer, and I recognize all these things. The one thing that you might be focused on is the Japanese beetle. That's going to affect lawns more than it's going to affect tree fruit. Sure. But what really affects us is people who have cherry trees out there, and the little cherry tree virus and Western X virus, which is passed on by leaf hoppers. And leaf hoppers are ubiquitous. They're virtually impossible to get rid of. So with the board monitoring and also the pest control going out and identifying where these trees are, these are eliminating and removing harbors of infection and disease to cherry growers all through the counties, both counties. And one of the most important things about that to really understand is you were talking about a mile for a codling moth. With a leaf hopper, you have 10 miles, and then with our winds, Katie bar the door. I don't know how far those things are going to go. They're very tiny, but they can contain the disease for a long period of time. And once you become infected, you don't necessarily see that for a number of years until you actually see fruit on the tree. So we have holdings with new orchards in them, and without having the pest control, and people, these are like, they're actually stalwarts, and they're the ones that are actually finding this stuff in residential areas. As commercial growers, we monitor our fields, and we look and we try to identify and control that with programs, but we have no way of identifying what's going on in the residential areas. So I consider this a very valuable increase in my taxes, I would say, and I would be more than willing to pay for it because the benefit from it far outweighs what I would be putting into that. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good morning, Commissioners. I would agree with both of the gentlemen. Having grown up in an orchard for most of my life before I left home, I've seen the impact of what apple maggots and the different things can have on an orchard, and would encourage you to empower this board to continue to do the work they're doing and potentially expand it, because as residence grows, education's important. There's a lot of ignorance of what the impact is of that innocent little tree that's the size of your thumb whenever you pick it up and plant it, and it's a neat thing, but they don't see the impact long term. So education's really important, and would encourage you to empower them to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Davidson.
Oh, one quick question about the quarantine status. If Franklin County, God forbid, we ever had to quarantine the county, what kind of impact would that be on the Horticulture Board budget if we had to go into quarantine status?
So the board, I mean, it would require us to kind of amp up our efforts, and probably there'd be more enforcement involved, because what happens is the restrictions would be more affected by, I should say, who's affected more by are the landscapers and homeowners, because now they are restricted to where they dump their yard clippings. And for us, that's where we would also need to start working with other organizations to make sure that we aren't carrying out beyond our quarantine. It's just such a bad word.
So if you allow me to summarize, it would be impactful.
Yes.
Are any of those additional costs, accessible by fines or levies against the people that caused it?
Our board does have the ability to create a policy to to charge a fee to residents that are regular offenders. But most of the time, because unless they are in a radius of a commercial orchard, we will only respond to a written complaint by a resident. Other than that, we go out and we educate and, provide the tools so they are aware of what the law is, that they are legally responsible for those fruit trees in their yard, which I know a lot of people aren't aware of.
And then my last question is, looking at your map, I see a couple of counties, like Yakima County, where just a portion of the county is quarantined.
Yes.
How easy is that to administer and enforce, to just do a portion of the county? And is
Well-
it really realistic to only do that?
Well, this is my first, exposure with the quarantine, and so WSDA are the ones who have the, especially the apple may get quarantine. And I think it's all about, monitoring and control. And they feel that just that portion, and so I'm guessing it might be a neglected orchard or an abandoned orchard, or there's orchardists or residential that are, it's just the infestation is such that they felt they had to quarantine that area. But getting quarantined is a process. It's not a simple check the box, you're quarantined. There's a lot of process involved behind it.
Thank you.
Couple more questions I've got. So how did you find that tree in that yard? Was that a complaint?
No. So a lot of the times, so when people are ready to remove their trees, they will call us, and what we do is we go out and we validate. We validate the tree is in fact a fruit tree, it's part of our program, and it's their property. And a lot of times when I'm doing that, I also look around in the area, and that's how I discovered that tree.
Okay. And can we go back to the map of Franklin County where you had the red dots? But why we're going there is the disposal of that tree. You showed that he had thrown down everything on the ground, which is going to complete the cycle of the moth. What is the proper disposal of that?
So the proper disposal that we recommend is that you bag the fruit. You can let it sit in the sun. It basically cooks all the critters in there, and dispose it in the trash. That is not an option.
Right.
And that was not the instruction that we provided to the homeowner.
Okay, so your workload is increasing when you're out. You are out and about, and you are looking. When they call you to a tree, then you look at the surrounding area. And when you're going into the residential instead of just out in the blocks, your workload is increasing dramatically.
Oh, yes. Every time, I was just having this conversation, every time we go out and we are usually validating a tree, we open a ticket. We call it a ticket. And so, and when we see these other trees and yards that are being neglected or typically overgrown, pruning, I would say, is a real large piece of what we want to be educating the residents on down the road. But then we open a ticket. And so what that does then is we will enter it into our database, and when it comes time for spray season, we send out reminders, and now they are on our mailing list, and we will check in periodically with them to see how they're doing and if they are maintaining that tree health properly.
So how will you determine the 75-cent charge for every acre, which means a tree? Are you going to go out and look at every yard, or are you going to rely on the honor system of them reporting their trees to you and the 75-cent?
Well, it's always been there.
It has been there.
Yeah, it's always been there, but what happens is, but as we grow, I feel that there is a lack of education to the public
Yep.
of what their legal responsibility is. And even though they are aware of the legal responsibility, there are still those that choose not to be proactive and spray the trees. And I think this is really becoming a problem, especially with the codling moth. And they only hurt each other, And when I ask, why do you have a tree that's infested? What do you do with that fruit? And it's shade. like I said, it becomes a shade tree. And I let them know with our tree buyback program, there's a lot more opportunity to buy a tree that will provide shade, and it's a quick-growing tree.
Right.
And then the other thing that we've been butting up to is the cost to remove a tree. And so that's why we periodically will run these specials, and we will offer tree removal at a reduced rate. Now, there are restrictions. We do not grind the stump, and we do not carry it away. But what we do is we cut it up enough so it will fit into the garbage. And I think that's important. Plus, we also offer services to disabled people and seniors.
Okay, so the map I was looking for was the one on the door. And while you're going to that, you mentioned corn as part of the,
On the door?
it was on the door. There, you're right there. You got red dots. You got some,
Oh.
what are those?
So that's our schedule. So that's our scouting schedule. So the dots mean, I don't know, do you see?
I see red and green.
Yeah, so the red ones mean we've already inspected, and the green ones, those are the ones that we still have left for that season to inspect. So
Are those due to a complaint, or are those a scheduled?
No, these are all cherry orchards.
Oh,
These are
okay.
all commercial orchards
Okay,
that you're seeing, and that's a big map on the back of our door.
okay. I was just curious what those dots, the sticky pins were. And in the moth is also, you said corn. Is that sweet corn, field corn, or what is the primary?
No, the moth is Japanese beetle.
The Japanese beetle is in the corn?
Yeah, it could be in the corn.
Is that sweet corn, field corn?
You know what, I don't know, but I am happy to find out for you.
Okay, because I'm just curious. We're corn growers, and we have sweet corn, field corn, there's seed corn, there's all high moisture corn, which is a field corn, but I'm curious as to what could be that, and what do we need to look for?
Yeah.
Does
well,
it attack the kernels on the corn, or is it the plant itself?
Here. As far as corn, I'm not aware of what the.
There it is right there.
Yeah.
Corn was the last mentioned, hops and corn and grapes and roses.
Yeah, so a lot of times it attacks the foliage, and it will skeletonize it, and so again, it limits the yields.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so it's an early, beetles will go after the early corn plant because it's
That's
attacked.
my understanding.
Okay. All righty, thank you. That's all I've got.
But there's another pest that's coming up, you guys. That's going to be worse than the Japanese beetle.
What's that?
It's the spotted lanternfly, and that's in my budget presentation.
Okay. All righty, thank you. Is there any other questions?
So Pam, good discussion. Thanks for the education. Option A, option B. Option A takes us from $1.50 to $3 per parcel. Option B is the 75 cents per acre or portion thereof, right? Acre or less. And you're not proposing both, it's A or B.
Yes, or one modified by the commissioners.
Sure. And just for the benefit of the audience and refreshing my memory, we're currently charging how much? $4 on the commercial lots, but we're just talking residential with this proposal. So on the residential, we're just talking $1.50 a year per parcel, right?
That is current.
Yeah. So if we went to a 75 cents per acre or portion of an acre, that would be standalone or together with the current $1.50 per parcel.
It'd be a standalone.
Okay, so the $1.50 per parcel would go away.
Yes.
Okay. I think you were plenty clear about it. I just wanted to get that in the record. Thanks.
So the 75 cents per acre would apply to dry land?
No.
No, just residential.
Just residential.
Yes.
And they would have to have a tree, correct?
No.
Every residential lot, even if they're not growing?
That's the current assessment, is every parcel right now is $1.50 per parcel. And so in that recommendation, it would become 75 cents per parcel, regardless of whether they have a tree or not.
Thank you. That's clarified it for me.
And that's part of the reason I spoke about Japanese beetle as much as I did, because I think residential parcels who don't have fruit trees probably look at this assessment and say it's de minimis, it's not going to change my life. But they also probably wonder what value they're seeing out of it. And when you have buckets of Japanese beetles in your yard, you're going to see value.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to understand the connection with pest control. And I realize that Japanese beetles, as the gentleman said, probably eat more grass and roses than anything else, but they can be a real annoyance in your property. So I think the bottom line is the assessment, as I said earlier, seems plenty reasonable, but I think that the residential community is going to gain a much greater appreciation for what you do than they currently have, because right now I don't think they see a lot of direct impact of your work on their parcels. But I remember walking through a yard and having clouds of beetles. I mean, Southern Illinois is corn country, and it's crazy. So, thanks.
Mr. Davidson.
One quick question about option B, and this is to the assessor. With the various acreages that are involved and called out here with different rates, does that impact the assessor's office at all to administer? Or do you actually calculate this charge and just deliver the entire charge in total? Or do they actually calculate it? And if so, is that an impact to your office?
We actually calculate that now by acreage and individual lots. And then we provide that acreage information and parcel information to the pest board. Or if they find some trees that we aren't aware of because of the permanent crop, then they let us know that, hey, somebody just planted a bunch of trees, and we go check it out.
But my question is, because there's different acreages associated with different rates, that doesn't impact you at all?
No,
And
because we would provide what the acreage is. We've already got that calculated out.
Okay.
Any other public comment, questions?
Pam, just one final question. We've had conversations over the years, but I've always thought that this particular function probably had as good a return on investment as most anything we do in the county. Especially when you look at the potential for commercial impacts, you look at quality of life, your neighbor's trees impacting you. I just think it's a real value. I'm concerned that there's a lot more high-value work that could be done, but you haven't done it. And over the years, in order to try and keep the budget in check for the last 20 years, you've been reducing services. So in a hypothetical sense, since you're not asking for more than the 75 cents per parcel or per acre or portion of an acre, what high-value work are you not doing by virtue of budget? And one of the things that comes to mind for me is community outreach.
Yes, that's exactly it, is the community outreach. And we'd like to be out there a lot more. We work with the schools and go to like the Farm Bureau. They have their events, and we participate. We participate at the fair. And what I would like to do is be a little more active with the residents in pruning and thinning, the real care of their trees, because we see it out there. And I think a lot, like going back to originally what I was saying, when they buy that little apple tree or that tree or fruit tree, they don't understand all of the care that needs to go into it to make it the way they want it to be. In fact, I just had a conversation yesterday with a resident who has a cherry tree, and he was asking about pruning. Right now, we just don't have the resources to make that outreach known to people, but that is something definitely that's on my radar.
Goes in the prevention bucket
Yes.
instead of responding later.
Because I want people to have, nice fruit. I want them to be able to share it with other people like they originally intended, And so we just want to give them the means and the resources to do that with not necessarily including the pesticides. So a lot of people want to be organic.
Is there any room in this proposed budget to do that kind of work more than you are now?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
And
good.
then some. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other questions, public comment? Hearing none at this point, I'll close the public hearing And entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we thank the presenters today and that we convert to the per acre calculation option B as presented.
Second?
Been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Next, we'll move down to thank you. This will appreciate it.
Yeah.
Next,
Thank you
we'll
for your
move down
time.
to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment? Anybody on the phone, Keith?
No one on the phone.
Okay.
Good morning, Kathy Sand, Franklin County. First I want to give Keith Johnson some kudos. I was able to attend a Una Noche de Éxitos last Friday night, and my Spanish is not as good. My Finnish is a lot better than my Spanish or my English, so hopefully I didn't offend anybody. But everybody that I spoke with, of course, county issues come up every time, and when I meet people, whether it's old friends or make new friends, and everybody said how much you will be missed and what a great job you have done. So thank you so much. You have really been an asset to the county, and you will be missed. Sometimes it's nice to get, I could have sent you an email or something, but sometimes it's nice to get a public kudos for the hard work you have done. So thank you. You will be greatly missed in the county. So, and good luck with your future endeavors. So, and my other comment is that with the insurance issues that have been coming up, I was concerned about Commissioner Didier's comments at last meeting about VEBA or the cash benefits. We have lost several employees to Benton County, and I look at their benefits package, which is amazing. They cover the whole family. They give money to VEBA. It's all included, and at the current, if we start taking away cash benefits or VEBA benefits, we're going to lose more people to Benton County. They also received huge pay increases, at least at the prosecutor's office at Benton County, where their chief deputies make as much as the elected at this time. And so I do not want you to be touching the benefits packages unless you want to make it better and give everybody across the board the family benefit and VEBA. So it's really hard time right now to get employees to work at all different county offices. And so I don't want you to punish people who have spouses that work and they get insurance benefit from them, or people who are in the military or retired military or have some other insurance sources that they receive benefits from. So thank you very much.
Is there anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone?
No
All
one on
right.
the phone.
We'll move down to the administration office business, and I've never seen this many items before. We've got 8. Good luck, Mr. Johnson.
Time is getting short, so we're trying to get as many loose ends tied up as we can. But most of these items today we have already spoken about, and they're just kind of final decisions on discussions we've held. So hopefully it'll be brief. The first item is Resolution 2022-263. That was in response to a discussion we had last week about the Sheriff's Command Staff compensation. Their compensation was held up due to collective bargaining agreement discussions that took longer than anticipated. And so the instructions that I received from the board last week were to provide a resolution that would accommodate going forward compensation that made it fair to the Sheriff's Command Staff. So the resolution that's proposed for your consideration attempts to do that. It's been reviewed by the Prosecuting Attorney's Office Civil Division for legality, and I think it meets the expectations of the board and the employees.
Okay, we have a resolution 2022-263.
So I've moved for approval of Resolution 2022-263 as presented, and then like to speak to the motion.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for resolution 2022-263 with discussion.
So last week when this issue came up, we had a discussion about the state constitution and the limits that it places on retroactive compensation. That's a tricky issue that has bitten us in the past. It's gone up to the state auditor's office, and my comment last week was, so long as this proposed retro compensation is legal, I'm happy to support it. And I just want to acknowledge the work of the prosecutor's office to review this and make sure that, in fact, this is lawful retro pay. Thanks.
I would just add that this is not a retro payment per se, as Commissioner Peck just
But perhaps
spoke to.
semantics.
Well, it's an important legal distinction just
Sure.
because we want to make sure that it's not challenged later. This is compensation going forward. It will be included in their calculations for retirement, and I think despite the delay, meets the expectations of those staff people who patiently waited for this to take place.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for the clarification.
And noted, thanks for the clarification. I did cross two things.
All right, there's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2022-263. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the Happel Center Management, Simmons Venue Management, Resolution 2022-251.
Yes, this is brought back also from a prior meeting with some minor modifications at the board's request. This would engage Simmons Venue Management, or SVM, to conduct the majority of management services at the Happel Center through the end of this year. There is a 60-day notice requirement if the county decides to not continue with that contract. I anticipate that if things go well and they can produce what we anticipate that they will, that the board will later in the year either consider an alternative solution or consider continuing this contract into 2023. But this allows us to host without interruption those events that are scheduled between now and the end of the year and begin preparation for those events that are scheduled in the new year. And it recognizes the effort of our current catering group and the expanded venue management expertise that they have, and have agreed to use their best efforts to maximize the revenue to the Happel Center. And so I offer that Resolution 2022-251 for your consideration.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Johnson, this, as I recall, is through the end of the year?
Correct. End of this year.
Have we learned anything new from our last discussion that needs to be highlighted?
Just the change in the date. This had initially been presented as a contract to go through 2024, but the board's discussion last week indicated that they would like to go through a testing or trial period through the end of this year, just to considering the number of changes that are going on with my leaving the county, with the management team at the Happel Center changing. The board seemed to think that it was wise to do a temporary or a short-term contract with SVM, and if things went well, they could look at extending that contract in the future or whatever changes may be necessary.
I'm looking for the read ahead here online to check the dates in the resolution. So the dates are not in the resolution, they're in the contract. Yeah.
It's in the contract, second paragraph.
Right, yeah, I was saying it's not, I was looking at the resolution to
Not
see
in
if.
the resolution.
Right.
Correct.
It's paragraph 2 of the contract.
Should it be in the resolution?
I don't think it needs to be. I just,
The contract is included by reference there. so-
right. Well, I'm not sensing anyone running a motion for approval of this, so I will. But I'm going to move for approval of Resolution 2022-251 with the following stipulation, that is that paragraph 2 of the included contract has a closing date of the end of the state fiscal year of June 30th, 2023. And I do that on the premise that to ask someone to come in and hire staff and buy equipment requires a pretty substantial financial commitment and investment. And to ask them to do that on less than or roughly 90 days contract seems a big ask. If my fellow commissioners are uncomfortable with that and they want to move for approval of the resolution as presented, they can certainly do that as well. But my motion is for the resolution with an amendment of the contract, that amendment being ending date of June 30, 2023. Thank you.
Hearing no second.
I'll make the motion that
That
we.
motion fails, so please go ahead, Mr. Mullen.
Make the resolution 2022-251 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for 2022-251 as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, Keith, we have
Thank
a Happel Center coordinator position.
Yes, we currently have an employee at the Happel Center who's responsible for major efforts to set up, take down, adjust during the holding of events. We have reviewed his position, and in light of the management team leaving, he is taking over some, not all, but some of the internal management functions, and will be working closely with SVM to make sure that our events are done well. He knows the lighting system, the HVAC systems, the things that are of concern, but also has undertaken some of the facility arrangement or event arrangement. So we have proposed a reclassification of his position and entitled it a Happel Center Facilities Coordinator, and that resolution to do so is 2022-264 for your consideration.
Move for approval of Resolution 2022-264 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for resolution 2022-264. With no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, Keith, we're down.
Yes, the next item is just for your information. Note the Department of Treasury has released additional funds for some local governments. This is additional funding in addition to the $18.5 million of ARPA funds we've received. It's also part of the Rescue Act legislation at the federal level. This will be an additional almost $250,000 split between 2023 and 2024 that Franklin County will receive. It's similar to a PILT payment for federal lands that are where the federal government owns lands in Franklin County. We do have some small parcels at the Hanford area and at the Juniper Dunes. So this additional money that will be coming to the county is going to be administered through the treasurer's office. Spoken with the treasurer, and she's agreed to manage the application. There's a process for applying for these funds, but assuming we meet those criteria for application, which I'm quite certain we will see that in the future. So I just wanted you to be aware of that change.
Will there be any stipulations on where those funds can be used?
These are very broad. There are some very minor stipulations, but they can basically be used for any governmental purpose. There's some restrictions about not using them for pension payments, I believe, and some other things, but it has very open-ended requirements.
And I believe it's going to be at 2 payments of how much per payment?
About 123,000, and I don't have the exact number, but a little over 123,000 for each payment.
And that one will come in this year or next year?
Both one in 2023 and one in 2024.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And that's just information there.
Yes, we don't need action on that.
Mr. Davidson.
Keith, if it is a PILT, is there a corresponding reduction in ad valorem taxes or other taxes that we forego if we take this PILT?
No, there's no change to the taxation.
Okay.
I just got a note that it was 153,000 each year, so my numbers may be off, but it's within that.
153 per year?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Next item it's just some consensus. If you we're not looking for a resolution, we have kind of looked at the facilities, the RV park, and our RV park director has recommended that we add some improvements to the sites that are located out on Home Run Road on the south end of that parking lot of the RV park, to add sewer hookups to those sites. They currently have water and power, but they don't have sewer hookups. And so she has proposed that we take 10 of those sites and make those modifications. It would cost looks like it's $66,000. And we would recover that over 2 to 3 years by having those additional facilities available.
So, Mr. Johnson, when we discussed this in our preliminary meeting Tuesday, we were talking about also a site for people to empty.
Yeah, we're looking into a dump station.
With a fee attached?
With that, yeah, exactly. There's.
While we're putting it in, we might as well make it an all service so we can get some more revenue out of it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That particular part of the proposal is not included here, but we would take a look at that as well.
So Keith, the map in our read aheads shows the existing RV park, the Pepsi Pavilion, and the parking lot. We have, over the last 10 or 15 years, made a budgetary distinction between what is track / now Hapo Center budget and property and what is RV park. In making that distinction, what is included in the RV park area? I wasn't aware that this parking lot was part of it, or that the Pepsi Pavilion was, since those are leased out separately.
Yeah, the Pepsi Pavilion is a component of the Hapo Center. The parking lot has been designated as additional space for RVs when the original intent of the RV park, of course, was to have RV space for events at the Hapo Center.
Well, the parking lot, I believe, is there for patrons of the pavilion.
Correct.
And was never, to my knowledge, part of the original RV park. So I am in opposition. I'm opposed to this on a couple of bases, but the most important reason, I think, is that there is a concept called entrepreneurial government, where local governments take taxes from citizens and then turn around and use those tax dollars or revenues that the county incurs from those taxpayer-owned facilities, and they use it to compete with virtually identical businesses in the local community. And we've done some things to try and mitigate that competition by keeping our rates par or a little above. But I think it's absolutely a failure of local government when you take taxes from citizens and then turn around and use them to compete with those same citizens that have virtually identical businesses. Point two is that the facility, the RV park, was conceived and approved on the basis that it was to provide facility and space for people who are attending and participating in events at the then track, now Hapo Center. And I don't see the park being used for that in any respect. In fact, the majority of them appear to be long-term tenants that are choosing to live there for whatever the reason might be. But the current use does not fit with the original authorization. An expansion of its use would be an affront to taxpayers with similar businesses, having the government fund their competition. And if, in fact, we don't have enough spaces for people attending events at the Hapo Center, then some of the permanent or near permanent residents probably ought not be living there. But my primary objection is government should never take taxes from a business and then turn around and use those dollars to compete with the business they took them from. That's, in my world, an obscene abuse of power. Thanks.
So in opposition to that, I don't know if Commissioner Peck has been around to look at the RV centers that are owned and operated by the individuals, but they are completely full, as are our spots over there. And all we're asking is more spots to become available so that people may have a place to park their RV and reside for a time, because we do have a time limitation on our spots, with the potential of a clean out, which would make it more accessible and easier for the people that own RVs to manage and maintain their RV.
I would add that there are RV facilities that are currently in the planning and development stages. I have absolutely no interest in them financially or otherwise, just to be clear, no conflicts of interest. But when you expand this facility, it'd be like the government coming in and, well, I could give you a dozen examples. But this throws cold water on developers who want to build similar facilities in the area. And it's true that there's a lot of demand for these kind of facilities, and that's why private funded developers are out looking at these options and building new parks. The only real advantage I see here to anyone is that this will generate more money for the county to spend. But I think it does it at the expense of competing with existing and future RV parks. We shouldn't compete with our taxpayers.
What is the length of time that they can stay in the RV park currently?
180 days is the maximum, I believe. 6 months.
That's not really a temporary
No.
event.
Yeah.
No, I think if we're going to do this, then the county ought to look at building a bunch of pizza parlors in town. It would be exactly the same thing.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I mean, I used to own a gym. College put one in, and he says, you know, we love competition. Well, that's not really competition when you have unlimited sources of money to compete against private industry. So, yeah, I would really have to take a look at it and see, but at this point in time, not in favor of competing against private companies.
Okay. I think we have a consensus on direction to take, and if it looks like we have a compelling reason to bring it back, we will, but
Okay.
I think we're good for that. Thank you. The next item is a request to appoint 2 members to the Benton Franklin Mental Health Advisory Board. As you know, we lost one individual, Trevor Hummel, who had been serving on the committee. And so we're asking that he be, his position be filled with Franklin County citizen John Roach. And due to a change in management at the Lord's Hospital, their representative was no longer going to be on the board. So we're asking for the appointment of Delina Hoffman from Connell to represent medical facilities on the Mental Health Advisory Board. So would ask for your approval to add those two members.
Would this just be a consensus with the commissioners, or do we need a resolution?
A floor motion would be appropriate to appoint those members.
Move to approve the Mental Health Advisory Board new member recommendations as reflected in the agenda and briefed by the county administrator. That would be for Mr. Roach and for Ms. Hoffman.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the two additional board members to be put on there that will replace two members that were there. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. The next item is a request primarily from the city of Connell, but the port as well, and other interested parties in the Connell Rail Interchange. There's an opportunity for seeking some federal money, and they've asked Franklin County's Board of Commissioners to offer a letter of support to our federal delegation to support $15 million in federal funds to assist in the completion of that Connell Rail Interchange project. Just for your benefit, for the benefit of those who may be listening, this is a project that we have supported for a number of years. It has been difficult to find all of the funding to support it. It's critical to some safety issues in the city of Connell. The current railroad structure through the city blocks off the high school from the fire station, and so kids have to cross the railroad tracks to get to school. Ambulances can't get across the tracks when there's a train. It's essential safety issue for the city, as well as economically. This would add some rail lines and ability to move commercial products. So it is an important issue for the city.
Mr. Johnson, what would the form of that support be?
Just a letter signed by the three commissioners to go to our two senators and Congressman Newhouse.
Okay, we've supported this for a long time. I certainly support sending a letter.
I believe that would go to Congressman, and she's in the 5th now. We're in the 5th. The Connell would be in the 5th.
Yeah.
This would go to her.
Correct.
Newhouse. Kathy McMorris Rogers.
I'd actually send it to 3 or 4 in the region. I think it has significant regional economic impact, including the rail lines to the north up into Moses Lake. So at a minimum, anyone representing anywhere from Grant County to Benton County, I think, is impacted. I'd send it to all of them. Can't hurt.
And I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement as well.
All right. We'll have that letter for you to sign then. The next item is a resolution 2022-265 to confirm the compensation for interim county administrator Dwayne Davidson. He can certainly speak for himself, but I believe he's agreed to the compensation as being adequate for what we're asking him to do, and so I would encourage you to pass that resolution.
Move for approval of Resolution 2022-265 as presented in the matter of compensation for the interim county administrator.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for Resolution 2022-265. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Moves us down to public, that's it, right, Keith?
Well, I do have just one announcement. That is on October 25th. It's the last Tuesday of the month. We are planning an evening meeting for our quarterly evening meeting. That's the week that we're doing budget hearings, so it's a busy week, but we'll be able to meet in the evening so the public can, those that work during the day don't always get to attend our meetings, will have an opportunity to.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, on October 25th, we will have an evening meeting for all those that are working, would like to attend a commissioner meeting. We will have an evening meeting on October 25th. So with that, we'll move down to public comment. Any public comment? Anybody on the phone? Anybody in the room? Seeing none, Mr. Johnson, I see we have a couple executive sessions. If you
We
want to move
do.
us into the first one.
I would perhaps like to just reverse the order that what they are on the agenda so that we can free up Jen's time, but I would like to request an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph I, to discuss with legal counsel matters related to agency enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation. And I think we could probably do this in 20 minutes, Jen, do you think? 15? We'll do 15 with the option of
Is that
coming out.
15 for both of them?
No,
For the first one, which is the second one.
the
Just in
second one is
reverse
under
order.
a different RCW, but it'll also be very short too, I think.
Well, let me ask the Board of Commissioners and everybody in the room, do we need a break before we go into the executive session? Anybody? Okay.
I was going to recommend one, but if we can do these both in 20 minutes or so, that's fine.
Yeah, the first one will be brief.
Okay.
I would ask that members of the board, myself, the interim county administrator, the clerk, and I need Margot here for actually both of these. Yeah, so Margot and Jen be allowed to participate.
So we're starting at 11. Okay, we've come out of the executive session, and we're back to regular session. Mr. Johnson, would you take us into the next executive session?
Yes, thank you. Requesting executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G. Evaluate qualifications of applicant for employment or review performance of public employee. I think we can do this in about 10 minutes. Would ask that members of the board, myself and the interim county administrator, and Margot from the Office of Human Resources be allowed to participate.
Thank you. If you'll open the door and leave it open, we'll get the meeting opened up and close her up. Okay, we're out of executive session, back into regular session. And once again, I'd like to welcome Mr. Davidson. Thank you very much for taking on this task of getting us through the transition. And is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.